Good afternoon. I'm currently bobbing up and down in a plastic kayak, of all places, in the southwest of Spain. And next to me on the left-hand side is an island called the Castillo de Sancti Petri, which is rough translation in English is St. Peter. He was perceived as being the foundational stone to Christianity. But this site, there's a lot of rocking going on. This site stretches way back to Phoenicians, and they had a chief god called Melchior, and there was a temple on there dedicated to him. And then the Romans changed it to the Pillars of Hercules. Now, the Pillars of Hercules has been a kind of big theme for me at the moment. I travelled to Gibraltar in April, and it was quite a profound trip. And that's, traditionally seen as the Pillars of Hercules is Gibraltar, and on the Moroccan side they have a mountain, there's the other pillar. And it's a threshold of so many different things. I kind of perceived it as being masculine and feminine, but also kind of the mortal worlds and the gods, and the old world and the modern world. There's just so much going on in that particular area. But many also place the Pillars of Hercules at this particular sacred site. And potentially there was a temple there dedicated to Hercules with 2 pillars, and then the sailors would do a sacrifice before they did their seafaring off into the Mediterranean Sea or out into the gods of the Atlantic Ocean. What's fascinating about the Pillars of Hercules is the allegory of it. It's like the boundaries of reality, and each pillar could represent something different. So one side could be feminine, the other side could be masculine, another side could be the conscious mind, or the other side could be the subconscious mind. And I just feel like for these times there's a real merging of the spiritual world, the underworld, and the human world. There's a lot going on. So the symbolism of the Pillars of Hercules is incredibly prescient for these times at the moment. And the symbolism is everywhere. And recently, Spain won the World Cup. I find that highly symbolic because Spain obviously is the home of the Pillars of Hercules, but also it's in their flag. And you can find it in the tarot cards. Freemasonry use it in their rituals. They have the big checkered floor and they have pillars at the end. So these pillars are kind of everywhere, and then particularly fold in conspiracy theories, the idea of like 9/11, the Twin Towers, and just numerology, number 11 are kind of like 2 pillars. I just feel it's very, very apt for these times, thinking about this idea of kind of the Pillars of Hercules. And it's just fascinating that I've come to Spain at this particular point, and also just learning about the Pillars of Hercules. And I just recently stumbled across this Castillo de Sancti Petri because I was coming here to do a wing foiling lesson, so it's completely by accident. I've been in Spain now just over a year, and it's just how fated this trip has been really. I've come to the Coast of Light, and again that was completely by accident. And I originally just came here on a 2-week holiday, and I was like, I could feel the energy and I could feel the potency of everywhere. And the place I ended up in, Los Caños de Meca, which translates as the Pipes of Paradise, it has a lighthouse there, and it's been a real symbolic journey linked to potentially the awakening of my crown and my pineal gland in a way. I just felt the representation of a lighthouse in that, and a couple of towns up north from there is Castillo de Frontera, and I had a real kind of heart-opening experience being there. So it just feels like all the way the Coast of Light has been kind of connected to awakening various parts of my body in some strange and weird way. That's my theory anyway. So it's just fascinating how I've kind of come to hear the Castillo de Sancti Petri. I don't know whether it's involving past lives, just kind of energies, or collecting aspects of myself. I have no idea. But I just feel like I'm on a very strange and peculiar and interesting, very fun alchemical journey really. Welcome. Just walking in a forest quite close to where I live in Los Caños de Meca. I went on my watery kayaking adventure on Friday, just gone, and it's now Tuesday, the 4th of August. And I've been reading that the original location for the Temple of Melqart and then later the Pillars of Hercules wasn't actually located on the island that I visited in the kayak. It was located relatively close by, but more probably out in the sea, in the canal surrounding there. And various academics from local universities at the moment have done a lot of research trying to find that location. I guess they've done a lot of satellite imaging, scanning of the seabed. And I've been reliably informed, or I read on the internet, that some of the results of that are going to come out this year at some point. But one fascinating aspect to this journey has really been the masculine that's kind of been coming through. Obviously Hercules being a very heroic, manly figure, and then some of the figures that actually visited the original Pillars of Hercules at that location, the islands, such as Julius Caesar and Hannibal. Julius Caesar specifically, he came across a statue of Alexander the Great, another big kind of heroic, I guess, distorted masculine presence. And Julius Caesar was actually quite downtrodden because he was like, oh, I haven't conquered as much of the world as Alexander the Great. But apparently what I read, that he had a very prophetic dream that night. And he was told in that dream that actually his end legacy would be very great and he would conquer more of the world than he realised. And these like masculine kind of archetypes that are surfacing not only in the landscape but also some of the sacred sites I've been visiting, it's a real contrast to the last few years for me, because it really feels like I've gone through like an alchemical journey of the feminine that's surfaced in actual real people. And also kind of sacred sites, places like the Alton Goddess, near Alton Barnes in Wiltshire, and also at Avebury, very feminine place, the stone circles around there. Some of the circles actually feels like it is in the shape of a female character. You have places like Silbury Hill, it's like the cosmic womb, and obviously there's a lot of very sacred waters around there, feminine spring waters. And then having come to Spain recently, I've been here about a year, I guess, there's just a lot of idolatry to do with Mary and again sort of feminine archetypes. So that does continue, but it feels like now that there's kind of more of a masculine element kind of coming into some of the places I'm going to, and it's been quite fascinating. And the strange aspect to my personal story, I've been tracking back like my own name, Simon, and other people I've been connected with kind of romantically. And there's a real correlation to Gnosticism, which has been a real surprise. So there's kind of a thread that's kind of unfolding for me at the moment. And then particularly coming to Spain as well, it's all got very biblical, some of the places I'm living in terms of like Los Canos de Mecca, Mecca being paradise, and then going to Gibraltar, it's like the Romans called it the gate to Hades. So there's a real convergence of all these ideas of like masculine and feminine, kind of the old world and the new world, lost civilizations. It's all happening. So I mentioned roughly around mid-April of this year, like a few months ago, I visited Gibraltar. And it was a real surprise actually how much I kind of enjoyed being there, because the first time I went many years ago I didn't really like it, but the second time was quite incredible, quite profound. And I just realised the profound narrative of that land, where you have this very masculine limestone rock jutting out the landscape, still held by Britain, very capitalist, kind of small enclave, a lot of military around there. And then to contrast that, on the Spanish side, it's called La Línea de Concepción, is the name of the town. And it's like a counterpoint to this very masculine Gibraltar rock. La Línea de Concepción, that's a Catholic name from the Catholic traditions of the Mother Mary. So even in the name of the town, it's a feminine archetype. I just find it fascinating. And then you kind of read into the history of that place, the fact it was revered by the Phoenicians, the Romans, so many different types of traditions and cultures throughout the ages. It's just this huge convergence point of, particularly like the Mediterranean Sea, the Atlantic Ocean, and again the old world and potentially lost civilizations and the modern world. And I just find the kind of energetic narrative is really informing kind of exterior events that are unfolding at the moment. And I just wanted to play you a short clip of when I was actually on Gibraltar and I was stood on this old battery, military battery, that's completely, disused and abandoned. But it was just an amazing view of the Strait of Gibraltar, and the light that day was just particularly crystalline and amazing. So I'm just going to play that for you now. I'm just sat here eating my lunch in a very peaceful, high position on top of Gibraltar Rock. And yeah, this is the Strait of Gibraltar. It's absolutely stunning. You can kind of see the natural formation of these so-called pillars, the Pillars of Hercules, with Africa in the distance there. Just about to see the land there. And obviously I'm sat on the British side. And the legend has it that Hercules split the continent in half, and you have Africa on one side, Europe on the other. And on one of the commemorative sculptures to do with the Pillars of Hercules, there's an occult reference, a Latin reference, says ni plus ultra, which roughly translates as nothing beyond. And the idea was that these pillars here denoted sort of pretty much the end of the world, and so mere mortals were not allowed to pass, because out into the Atlantic Ocean there was nothing, and I assume they thought maybe you just fall off the end of the earth. But realistically, obviously, if you keep sailing in that direction, you'll hit South America, you'll hit America. But yeah, just absolutely stunning. So again, I visited Gibraltar probably about mid-April. And then 3 months later, little did I know, the 14th or 15th of July came along, and at midnight, officially the border between the two countries dissolved. So that meant if you lived in La Linea, a lot of people live there, and they cross over into Gibraltar to work, and vice versa the other way, it meant they no longer had to go through any, official border. It just made life a hell of a lot simpler. And I just found that very prophetic, that I'd find all this symbolism, these various thresholds and boundaries between masculine and feminine, all these other aspects. And the fact that the border dissolved, I found it highly, highly symbolic. Now this is where things get a little strange, because you had that very positive dissolving of the boundaries between these two nations. But then recently, the 30th to the 31st of July, only a few days ago, in Quetta, and I never realised this, but Spain actually has an enclave on the top of Morocco, North Africa, and 50 to 60,000 Moroccan men stormed the border into the Spanish enclave on the Moroccan side. And unfortunately, around about 60 to 70 of them died, mostly through drowning, because a lot of the migrants actually crossed over via the water, via the sea, and unfortunately drowned. Now, I think it took about 48 hours for the Spanish authorities to basically say to the people that stormed the border, like, there's nothing here for you, we can't offer you any food, we can't offer you any water. And so the majority of them went back to the Moroccan side. Geopolitically, there's a lot of theories about why this has happened. And one of them is the fact that the Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez, actually visited Algeria and was quite supportive of the idea of independence from Morocco. So there's theories that the Moroccan king didn't like that, and obviously then opened the boundaries, the border, for all these migrants to basically just storm into the Spanish enclave. There's also another narrative to this as well, involving kind of potentially Israel and the United States, with Spain kind of winning the World Cup and basically beating Argentina, who was seen as the favourites of particularly Israel and the United States. So there's that angle, and also the fact that Spain is very, very critical of Israel in many ways, and also very supportive of the Palestinian cause. But also, relatively recently, a few months ago, the Spanish government basically banned the American government from launching any attacks from their American bases in Spain. So it could be seen as a weaponized move against Spain also by those particular nations. But at the moment, it feels like there's going to be more unfolding in this particular area, in this region. We've had the recent potential war against Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. That's still going on, and that's a big sort of shipping lane for oil. And it's just strange that now the shipping lane of the Strait of Gibraltar is kind of in focus, and there's a lot of things unfolding, things happening, some of it good, some of it bad. And it's just fascinating that, I've kind of come to this region, I'm quite close by to it, so that's kind of folds in my own personal story. But yeah, it just feels like things are going to be occurring in this region a lot more. And also astrologically, weirdly, Spain is due, I think it's like a solar eclipse next Wednesday. So I don't know astrologically whether some of these energies are also playing a part in some of these narratives that are occurring. I don't know, but I'm just throwing it in the mix. These last few days I've really been thinking quite deeply about some of the synchronicities I've had with the Pillars of Hercules. I'm just having so much at the moment, but it seems to stretch all the way back, because, you know, as I turned 21, which in a lot of cultures are seen as like, you know, the proper age when you properly turn an adult. And although I was born in July, I didn't celebrate my 21st with my parents until September. And this was the era of like 9/11. And so we're actually in Dublin, staying in a hotel at the time. I remember as the Twin Towers are kind of coming down, there's lots of panicked Americans in the hotel. And they were trying to call home, trying to check on family and friends and work colleagues just to see if they're okay. So I had this very visceral experience of seeing these images on the TV, but he obviously had the real emotion with the people downstairs in the foyer of the hotel trying to contact home to see if everyone was okay. So yeah, I mean the 11th November, 2 pillars, and then the physical artifice of the 2 towers, they're 2 pillars. And it was a real portal for a dark period of, you know, human history. It went through to wars in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, all kind of unfolded after that, and that's still happening at the moment. So in its own right, when the Twin Towers went down, it was like a portal and completely changed human history and events. So there's that kind of synchronicity. But even just recently, small things like I went to a surf shop the other day and I noticed the logo of the shop itself was like 2 pillars. And actually a few weeks ago I bought a surfboard, and again the logo of this surfboard is like 2 pillars. So for me it's kind of everywhere. And even the numerology, I mean, for years and years I kept seeing these numbers 2111. So if you have the 24-hour time in Europe, it's like 9:11 at night. And I've been seeing this for years. I never quite understood what it meant. I'm seeing it less and less now. But if I think back to my 21st, when I was like 21, and it was in November, when I celebrated in Dublin, maybe there was some kind of correlation, I don't know. But yeah, just this pillars symbology and the synchronicities I'm experiencing, yeah, I've had so much of it, and it just seems to be ramping up at the moment. So there you go, I'm going to leave you in this beautiful evening sun, Pillars of Hercules. Just so much going on with that at the moment. I'm sure I'm going to be bringing you more content to do with this. It just feels like a real convergence point of just so many things in the human world and the spiritual world and the underworld. It's this real nodal point of activity. But thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you at the next one. Take care.